he's going to walk us through that. So he's going to give us a present. Hold on, he's just calling me right now, so maybe he's having trouble getting in. Hang on a second. Hey, John. 9582. That's what it is. Yes. Are you able to get in? Yeah, I was having the same issues. So hold on. Let me tell everybody what's going on here. This is John. He's having a little difficulty getting in, so bear with me because he's a very important piece of this puzzle. We're going to try to get him technologically hooked up, and I'll come right back to you.
Councilmember Pulley, this is Councilmember Taylor. I don't know if I missed roll call, but I'm here.
Miss Rosie, this is Bob Nash. You can disregard the voicemail I left you on your phone. We finally got in.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have John on the phone, and I think he is in as well. I'm going to keep him on the phone for a second, so just to make sure that when I introduce him, he can get on and unmute himself. So let me go back with my introduction of what we're here to talk about. Again, we're not here to conduct any business. There will be no votes or no action taken on the part of the Public Safety Committee. We're here to talk about two things. The mayor's office, and John Bunton is a representative of the mayor's office, is going to give us a presentation on, number one, the police chief search roadmap. He's going to walk us through that in some level of detail. And at the conclusion of his presentation, which I anticipate will take about 10 minutes or more, then we will open up the floor. I'm going to put a cap at 3:45 p.m. on questions from the floor regarding that. We will, of course, recognize members of the committee and then other council members. And I will, the COB has been invited, so I will give them an opportunity to talk, to ask a question as well, and the FOP if we have some time at the end of the session. The second topic we want to talk about is the Policing Policy Commission, which focuses on use of force policy. Mr. Bunton will have some level of description on what's going on there, and at the conclusion of his talk, we will also open up the floor very similarly for questions. Again, with respect to questions, you direct those questions to me and I'll forward them to the mayor's office or whatever. But we want to keep those questions process focused. We do not want to get off topic. So this is a very specific meeting to cover two very specific topics, which are, as I've outlined, the police chief search roadmap and the Policing Policy Commission. So let's keep our questions directed to those two particular topics regarding process. So I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Bunton at this point. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Pulley. Let me first establish, can people hear me here?
Yes.
We okay? Can people see me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. and see you, John. Go ahead.
Fantastic. So Councilmember Pulley, thank you for the opportunity to speak to all of you. I apologize for the strange technical difficulty I was having with my iPad. Hopefully this laptop will behave better. We've been working very hard here in the mayor's office on both putting together a very thoughtful police chief search roadmap and putting together this policing policy commission. I'm really glad to have an opportunity to sort of share the work that we've been doing with all of you. So I'll start by talking about the police chief search. So our goal in beginning this process was to conduct a very thorough, very rigorous national search for a new police chief. In particular, we're looking for a experienced leader, an innovator who's committed to 21st century policing principles. And in a lot of ways, I think that there's a lot of agreement on the traits and characteristics that we want to see in our next chief of police. So as we thought about the process, the best process designed to produce that, there's a fairly standard way in which most cities who are looking for a police executive go about doing that. We have a very professional, of course, human resources department. It's a fairly prescriptive process that they run by the book. And that's absolutely how we're doing this process as well. But of course, as part of this, we want to encourage fantastic candidates who are working in cities across the country to put in applications, to go ahead and apply and go through the civil service process. So to do that, we decided to do what other cities have done across the country. You're seeing this, to the north in Louisville and elsewhere. And do what we did last time. We went through the police chief selection process and select a consultant who sort of specializes in this area to help HR do really targeted outreach to outstanding candidates, encourage them to apply. There are a handful of firms that really do this. Police Executive Research Forum is one. They conducted the search that resulted in Chief Surpass a number of years ago. Gary Anderson is one. We ended up choosing Public Sector Search, which is focused only on police chiefs, run by Gary Peterson, who had previously worked at Ralph Anderson, not Gary Anderson. He's done about 25 police chief searches, former police chief himself, California-based. Most recently, I think Seattle, San Francisco. He's doing Boulder right now. New York City's MTA system, which has about 1,200 officers. So a very, very experienced consultant, and we're all excited about having him presenting Nashville and reaching out to candidates. We think that there is that Nashville is an incredibly appealing department, highly professional department. It's a wonderful opportunity. As we were working on the roadmap, we realized that there was an opportunity to go to the Civil Service Commission and to sort of to update the job description title, which was written in 1980. To underscore our commitment to 21st century policing principles as laid out in President Obama's task force on 21st century policing. So you may or may not have seen that we presented a proposal to the Civil Service Commission to update that in a way that emphasized those qualifications. We also wanted to broaden the potential pool of applicants. And so one of our recommendations was to decrease the level of senior executive experience from 5 years to 3 years so that we didn't exclude any fantastic deputy chief from some other department across the country. We were gratified that the Civil Service Committee acted on that recommendation, and happy to share those changes with anyone who's interested in seeing them. We also understand that there is a high level of interest in this search. HR runs things in a certain fashion. They have a process that has to be followed. but we also wanted to look for ways to do a great deal of community outreach around this choice, and also to get a lot of community input. This is obviously a hugely consequential decision, one of the most consequential hiring decisions in Mayor Cooper's first term, I'm sure. So as we thought about how to do that, one of our challenges, of course, is pandemic, which we are all well aware of, and which rules out some of the sort of in-person neighborhood meetings that we might otherwise do. So we've tried to be creative and figure out how we can do this using other tools. And let me just briefly sort of lay out the community neighborhood engagement strategy that we've come up with. So first, we wanted to start by doing a community survey. The inspiration for that came from Louisville. They, of course, are doing a police chief search right now, and they've gotten a lot of engagement. And so we thought that would be a great way to begin this process, as we wanted to do that, of course, in partnership with the council. So my colleague, Eric Brown, who I believe is on this phone call, reached out to all of you and shared sort of our list of neighborhood associations in your districts and asked for people that we should connect with. Thank you very much to all of you for forwarding suggestions. We have reached out to all of those neighborhood groups at this point and asked them to share with us, ask them all to participate in the survey and reach out to us directly, share ideas and feedback with us, to be in touch. We also have worked through MNPD's community coordinators, their COCOs, to connect with the neighborhood and business groups that they're in contact with. So we reached out directly to 569 neighborhood and business groups through the COCOs, as well as the neighborhood associations and groups that you all were kind enough to provide to us. And we've seen a great deal of interest so far in the survey. I tallied the number of results that we've had in the first 2.5 days. We've gotten 1,020 results, and I think that's a really fantastic level of engagement. Louisville had 9,000 after several weeks with the survey up. I think we're probably going to exceed that. We're tabulating that. We're also pushing that information out onto Nashville's open data portal. So that data was shared earlier today. And as we continue our outreach and engagement process, we're of course going to direct people to that so that everyone can see exactly what that input looks like. Hope that'll be very, very useful. That's just the beginning of our outreach process. As next steps, what we're looking at doing is Eric and I will be, and have already begun this process of reaching out to community groups, to groups that are committed to and focused on policing reform, social justice, to businesses, to the FOP. We want to have individual WebEx meetings with all of you, and what we learn from these conversations is going to inform several things. First, it will inform the job posting that we are planning to advertise beginning in mid-August. So that's very important, and that's going to go up on 10 or so trade associations across the state and across the nation as part of this national search. We also, what we learn from the survey and from these conversations will also inform the work of 2 groups, which will come later in this process. So basically the timeline is going to be, we go through this period of intense community engagement. We post the job description, and by we, I mean the human resources. And this is their area of expertise, and they are in the lead on this. That'll be posted for 30 days. As we move towards the end of that 30-day time period, Mayor Cooper will be announcing a review committee and an interview panel. The way the process works is that HR will receive job applications. They will score those applications into one of 4 categories. And then working with the review committee and with our consultant, they will winnow that pool of candidates to probably 4 or 5 people is what they've indicated they think is the appropriate number, at which point they will arrange for those people to visit Nashville. They will meet with the interview panel and with the mayor. And of course, by charter, that decision about the next police chief is very much the mayor's decision. We want that decision. We want the questions that the review committee and interview panel pose. We want the job posting to be informed by the survey and by all the individual WebEx meetings that we're doing. It's also very important to get police department sworn officers and civilian employees' perspective on needs. So we're hoping at the end of next week to get a survey in the field to ask employees what their priorities and needs are. And that's a current focus of our work. I'm also working with our consultant in the department to make sure he connects with commanders and deputy chiefs, with community coordinators, and also with the groups that we're doing individual WebEx meetings with, so we can hear about community concerns and community needs. So for people involved in that sphere, you'll be seeing Gary Peterson appearing in that context. So that is our overall plan. So far, so good. We're really excited about this high level of engagement on the survey. And I look forward to answering your questions. I'm glad that everyone has heard me. I'm a little concerned about my audio. I've not heard anything via the computer from you, Councilmember Pulley. So I might dial you back in on the phone and just make sure I can hear questions at least that way. I apologize for the mystery iPad failure and the strange audio behavior.
Can you hear me now, John? Evidently not. Okay, so for those of you, okay, John, you can't hear evidently, so I'll repeat the questions as they come in, or I'll just put you on speaker and let you listen yourself on the phone. But anyone who has a question now for John about the police chief selection process, if you'll just raise your hand and I will recognize you. I do see Russ Bradford's hands raised. I don't see any others. So Councilmember Bradford, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulley. I do apologize. I just got off work, so I may have missed this. Does the mayor's office have any intention of reaching out to some of the local advocacy groups?
Feedback over here, Councilman Brad.
We're getting some feedback through here for some reason, so go ahead and try to ask your question again.
I do apologize. I just got off work, so I may have missed this if it was already spoken. But does the mayor's office have intentions to work with community groups such as the Equity Alliance and Community Oversight Now in order to assist with some of these surveys?
Community groups such as the Equity Alliance and so forth?
Yes, thank you for that question. As our next,
can you hear that?
Yes, can you hear me okay? Can everyone hear me?
John, did you hear me? John.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, did you get that question?
I did, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the question. So, yes, we'll be reaching out to the Equity Alliance. Eric Brown and I are in the process of contacting, we've got about 20 or so, 24 community organizations on our list. If you're dialed into this and want to give a specific number, feel free. But connecting and having individual conversations with groups like NOAA, the Equity Alliance, IMF, FOP, and others is very much the task of the next 2 weeks.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up. Anybody got any other questions? I'm still getting a lot of feedback through here. I guess that's coming from John being on the phone. I'll just call him back if necessary. All right. John, let me call you back when there's a question because there's a lot of feedback with your phone on at the same time. So I'm going to have to shut it off while we're doing this, okay?
Okay.
All right. All right, I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to turn it over to John and let him talk about the policing commission on use of force. And I'll call him right now and let him know it's his turn to talk about that. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
I'm going to focus on answering questions and turn off my visage. Does this sound better?
Go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. Is everyone hearing me okay? So let me turn next to the Policing Policy Commission. I'm going to be a little bit more general on this because we are still finalizing this commission. The mayor's been being very deliberate about putting together this group and thinking about the scope of its work. We're about 95% of the way there. I expect that we will have an announcement next week with a lot more details. But in the meantime, I can talk about its purpose and how it's been shaping up. So when President Obama issued his challenge to cities, councils, and civilian oversight boards to address use of force policies, Mayor Cooper was instantly interested in doing this, texted that night and said that that was something that was important for Nashville to do. He wanted to take a look at and make sure that we understand how we use force, what trends are, how we compare to other cities, and to look for opportunities to improve policies and procedures. And as we talked about that, he felt very strongly that this is something that is incredibly important for the city as a whole, and that it should require a very, bring together a broad group to work on this. And I'd say he's thinking about the mission in broad terms. The fact that it's called the Policing Policy Commission is intentional. He wants this to sort of look at not just use of force in a narrow sense, but also things like, how we recruit people, what's the diversity of the force, and are there ways that we might be able to improve the diversity? How do we do training? What are the opportunities there? What tactics are we using? In other words, just a chance for everyone to sort of understand how MNPD operates, how we compare to other places, and what opportunities there might be to make improvements. So as we were talking about this, one of the first questions that came up was, how do we do this in a way that empowers community oversight board, Metro Nashville Community Oversight Department? They have an important role here, obviously, in police oversight and policy advisories. This is very much in their wheelhouse. We wanted them to do their work, and we wanted their work to sort of inform this group. So as part of the strategy of doing that, one of the first phone calls Mayor Cooper made was to Ashley Davis, chair of the Community Oversight Board. Since then, he's had a number of phone calls with other community members. And one of the things that we saw here was an opportunity to try to work on this together in a very collaborative way, which we think would be great for the city. So my colleague, Eric Brown, and I have had some excellent discussions with Director Fitchard and Dr. Viller at Metro Nashville Community Oversight. We have invited them to conduct an analysis of MNPD policies and procedures, to compare them to national best practices, do whatever they think is appropriate, but also we've asked them to take advantage of their experience and their analytic expertise and let that inform the work of this Policing Policy Commission. At the same time, we've reached out to MNPD and we've requested, with a request for a great deal of information about current policies and procedures. We wanted to understand the city of use of force, where it occurs in the city and how it compares to other cities. And MNPD has been great in pulling that information together. And so we believe that the analysis that Metro Nashville Community Oversight is doing, in which MNPD is providing, is going to be very, very helpful to the work of this commission, which we expect will begin meeting next month. And the mayor's office is also pulling together information, for instance, on use of force policies in cities like Camden, New Jersey, which is widely regarded now as a model. We're going back and looking at things like the report the Police Executive Research Forum did back in 2016, 2017 on 30 principles around use of force. At the time, a sort of controversial call for police departments to embrace a more stringent set of standards looks very relevant in today's light. And it's a standard that MNPD has already applied to its own departments. We want to take a close look at that. In some extent, what we're going to ask the Policing Policy Commission to do is dictated by President Obama's pledge and challenge to cities. It had several components. One component was sharing the experiences that people have had with use of force. And so, we sort of thought about every aspect of this very, very carefully. One thing that we heard in reaching out to community members very broadly was that people have told these stories before. These are not new stories, that people don't necessarily want to do them again, and that people are looking for action, not just a chance to share traumatic events. And so as we thought about the first aspect of the Obama pledge, how do we get those stories? We've been trying to go back to things like the Truth and Reconciliation Project that Vanderbilt Divinity School conducted several years ago. We've also gone back and looked at the Real Dialogue stories. Deputy Mayor Haywood's been doing some listening sessions. We hope we'll produce some stories. We're trying to be very thoughtful about sharing experiences in a way which is action-oriented. As we move forward with this, we envision setting up a web page, highlighting members, giving people a chance to share recommendations and experiences if they want to. But we feel good and that we are doing this in an appropriate fashion. The second part of this is, of course, establishing trend lines and baselines. We need to know where we are across a whole range of current issues. And we appreciate MNPD's assistance for us and for COB and getting at that information. And then, of course, the third thing is going to be making recommendations. And we're finalizing now sort of scope of recommendations, which we hope the commission will take under review. There are several areas where we want them to take a hard look at sort of where we are and what national best practices are. And, our hope is that this will be a chance to sort of come together, work on some analysis together across departments, and bring a whole diverse range of community perspectives. The commission will include activists, it will include subject matter experts with a background in law enforcement and the law. It'll include a wide range of community leaders, new Americans. And of course, it's not happening in isolation. This is something that will begin its work while we're doing a police chief search. And the timing of this group report will be very close to when a new chief of police is coming into office. So Mayor Cooper is very hopeful that this report, which will of course be presented to council, to the mayor, to the public, and to the new chief of police, will be a really valuable resource for the new chief as he or she think about their priorities for the department. And of course, the commission itself will self-organize and set priorities to some extent. And our role is to support their work and bring facts and information on current practices and national best practices to the table. So more details to come on that, as well as an announcement of members next week. And I'm going to shut off my screen and call Councilmember Foley back again because of my strange audio.
Okay, so as a matter of process here, what we're going to do is open up the floor for questions as it relates to process regarding the topic at hand. And some of you may have joined us late, so the way we'll facilitate this is that John cannot hear on his audio. So I will take your question and relay it to him if you should have one. And whoever's got their mute button off, please turn it on now, unless that's John, maybe. Okay. So anyone, just put your hand up if you have a question.
To call me back. That phone call did not work.
Anybody got any questions? All right, I don't see any hands up, so I do see. All right, Eric Brown, go ahead. Eric, I see your hand up if you have a question. All right, we do have I do want to say that we've got a member of the COB here, and we have a member of the, hold on a minute.
As another option, I'd like everyone to be able to reach out to me directly if they have any questions. My cell phone number is Councilmember Foley, I've got you on mute on my phone.
Get your mute up real quick until you're ready to talk. It's really a lot of feedback here.
Russ, as
Okay.
the host, you have the ability to mute Mr. Bunton as the host.
I just told him to mute. So I'm not the host. Wesley Smith's got the host control, so I'm powerless as it relates to that. So hold on just a minute. What I want to do now is recognize the fact that we've got members of the COB and we got members of the FOP here. And I don't see any other questions from council members. I don't see any hands up. So I'm going to give them an opportunity to talk about this process. So Ashley Davis, I'm going to turn the floor over to you for a question. And so just the floor is yours. And as soon as I get your question, I'll relay it to Mr. Bunton.
Thank you, Chairman Pulley. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, the Community Oversight Board, we certainly appreciate the opportunity to listen in this afternoon. Hope everyone has had a productive, safe, and healthy week, too. I'll ask just a very straightforward question here because I was able to hear Mr. Bunton's overview and analysis here on both points here. It's very, very clear on the second point what his, I'll hold here.
Questions for me. We're not sure to be to
Chairman Pulley, should I hold?
Hold on just a minute. Let me, John, mute yourself. Okay, well, we're hearing you talk, so just make sure you stay muted. And then I'll call you and let you know what the question is. Okay. Sorry, Ashley. Go ahead.
That's okay. Not a problem. So a question is just that on the first topic, speaking about the process, I'm clear on the use of force. What I wasn't clear about is if Mr. Bunn could just offer some details about how Mayor Cooper envisions the Community Oversight Board being involved in the selection of the next chief of police.
I think I got that question, Ashley. I'll relay it to him right now and get him to answer.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm here. I'm going to hang up my phone. Thank you for the question, Ms. Davis. So when we look at the roadmap for the chief of police selection process, it highlights the important role of the review committee and the interview panel. And among the qualifications that it specifies for people in those roles and subject area expertise in law enforcement and community oversight, we made a decision to not announce everything at the beginning of the process because we didn't want there to be a long, quiet lull of 6 to 7 weeks when no one heard anything. Instead, we're sort of putting out the roadmap and saying what we're going to announce when. But I think there will be an appropriate role for someone with law enforcement and community oversight in the incredibly important work that the review.
Thank you. Chairman Pulley, let me just make sure I'm clear. I'm sorry, there was a little bit of feedback, a little static. I just want to make sure I understood Mr. Bunton's response. He was saying that it would be the mayor's preference that a member of the COB with law enforcement background participate or be a part of the selection committee. Is that what he'd be saying?
I will ask for clarification on that.
Thank you.
He's going to come back and try to answer that again.
I apologize for the feedback. No, so what I said was we don't want to announce any members of the interview panels at this time. Per the terms of the roadmap, we're going to do that later. But in the roadmap, we do talk about community oversight experience being something very important in those roles. So we do see a role for MNCO participation in that part of the process. And we'll, of course, have more to say on that as we move forward, get through the job announcement. It's time to announce the review.
Ashley, does that satisfy your questions?
I'll be honest with you. I did hear the beginning of what Mr. Bunton is saying. In fact, there's others on the call, so if anyone can help me clarify, it was just towards the end that it dropped off a little bit for me. And I'll be honest with you, maybe someone else understood it.
My understanding of what he answered was that he's not ready to release the members of the committee as yet. So it looks like Councilmember Mendez has his hands up. Bob, you want to add to that?
Yeah, can you hear me, Russ? Can you hear me, Russ?
We can hear you.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
What I'm hearing him say, Ashley, is that they're not ready to announce every step of the process at this point because they don't want there to be a long silent period between the initial announcement and then as things play out a couple months down the road. But as you look at the timeline, they're anticipating that the actual interview process will include people with law enforcement experience as well as people with community oversight experience, and therefore
I apologize to everyone for my audio problems. I'm completely excited about this. Councilmember Boyd, thank you so much for calling these questions. I appreciate that. If anyone wants to text me,
and
all times.
all right, so John muted himself again. Ashley, the last little bit there is I think he was being clear that they absolutely anticipate having a role. That they absolutely intend on having a role for the oversight board as part of the interview process, but that they're not making the specific appointments for that group at this time.
Yeah, that's the way I understood it, Ashley. So the law enforcement experience, I don't think applies to the COB as much as the overall group. So does that satisfy your questions, Ashley?
No, yes, in totality, that does help. Thank you very much, Councilman Mendez.
Thank you for being here. I just heard from Mr. Smallwood, the FOP, and he does not have any comments at this time. Are there any more council members who wish to speak? I don't see any hands up except for Eric. Eric, I'll give you another opportunity. Eric, do you want to talk? Okay, I don't hear Eric. So let me summarize here. Again, we talked about two issues. This is not the last time we will talk about either of those two issues because the role of the Public Safety Committee, I believe, moving forward is to keep everybody informed on this process. I don't expect this to be a short process of hiring a police chief. I think it should be a very thorough process. So periodically, we will have the mayor's office or this committee come before us and come before the council and give us updates along the way whenever it's appropriate. And the same holds true for the policing committee on the use of force. So we will be coming back to you periodically from time to time, just so that as a matter of transparency, we can all understand what's going on and where we are in the process. I do want, before we conclude this meeting, I do want to also inform you all, Rosie sent this out today instead of earlier so that it wouldn't confuse the two meetings, but we're gonna hold another special called Public Safety Committee meeting. I know I'm burdening you with a lot of this, and hopefully our technology will be a little bit better next time. But next Wednesday afternoon, you should have an invitation shortly in your inbox The purpose of that meeting, there have been a lot of council members who've expressed some concern over the mask enforcement issue. And there are also some other issues relating to application of the health department order. So we're going to have a number of people from the health department and the mayor's office and the police departments join us to discuss those issues next Wednesday afternoon, should you care to join us. So if nobody has anything else.
Sorry, I can't find my raised hand thing. This is Courtney Johnson.
I saw you unmute. I just can't imagine getting through a meeting without a question from you, Vice Chair. So you now have the floor.
I'm going to take that in the kindest way possible. I'm actually asking for Mr. Smallwood because he's saying his microphone is inoperable. His question is, he would like to know if the FOP will have a role equal to the COB in this selection process.
I'll get in touch with Mr. Button.
Okay.
Councilmember Pulley?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
I have Eric Brown here with a text. He's asking that he had some information to share, but he's not able to talk.
Yeah, hang on just a minute, Brandon. Let me ask John this question real quick.
Okay.
So thank you for that question, James. At this point, we're not going to make commitments for a specific announcement about who's going to be on the review committee or the review panel committee. We do see the FOP as a vital partner in all of this. We are also following HR guidelines and what HR recommends for these review committees and review panels, which they assemble are a mix of subject experts, typically, community voices, and also partners. So putting department heads onto some of these committees is an important priority and guideline for them.
I'm sorry to interrupt, and I know that Mr. Bunton can't hear, but we have got to do something about his audio because nobody.
I know. I got it. I'll call him right now and tell him.
If I may suggest that we have him just call in via phone. Those instructions were on this, and since his video is turned off.
Yeah, he's trying.
Okay, I just emailed him those instructions as well, Chair. Thank you.
So I apologize for my low volume. I'm now speaking quite loudly. I hope you can hear me better this time. So we are not going to announce members to these committees at this point, but absolutely we can commit to the fact that we want to improve the FOP in this process. We want to hear officers' voice. We will certainly consult with you and other groups moving forward. The process of putting together a The review committee and interview panel is something that really where HR drives the train. What they recommend there, strongly recommend, is that you sort of have certain areas. And one thing you want to have subject expertise, you want to have community representation. You also want to have partner representation, is what they say. So typically having department heads involved in some way in these committees is standard practice. So of course, we defer to their expertise in all of this, but we will absolutely be looking for multiple points and input as we move forward with selection. I hope that was better. I'm also going to try to call in by phone.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anybody else have any more questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Councilmember Nash.
Go ahead.
I'm hoping, I applaud the national search. I think it's important that we look for the very best. At the same time, I hope that is not to the exclusion of seriously looking at local candidates. I think the school board, or the head of schools is a good example. We found someone that really has a good history here, knows where we've been successful and where we haven't, and I think so far has shown that she's done a great job. We didn't have to go outside. I'm not trying to pitch anyone in particular, but I hope we will be considering in-house candidates also in this search. That's it. That's the question.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand you. Is that a question for Mr. Bunton?
Yes, I want to make sure that we're not excluding in-house candidates.
Oh, I got you. I'll ask it. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the answer that he gave me so that we don't have any issues. So it's a very emphatic, absolutely not. They're going to look at all qualified, and they fully expect in-house candidates to be a part of this process. And they will be given every opportunity to go through the process just like anybody else would. Is that okay? Is that satisfactory to you, Councilmember Nash? Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Brandon, you got something from Eric Brown?
Give me 1 second, council member.
All right, take your time.
Chair.
Yes, sir, Councilmember Taylor.
Chair Pulley, I have called Mr. Brown on a second device, and I'm just going to put him close to my speaker. Will that work for us?
If we can hear him, otherwise we're going to have to get you to interpret for us.
That's perfect. Mr. Brown, if you can hear me, please go ahead.
Yes, sorry everybody. I've called in on both my phones and I don't know what was going on, so I apologize for that. I was saying if there's any other questions that maybe John couldn't hear that I could answer them, but of course I'm also having the same issues with my audio. But feel free to email me, Eric Brown, eric.brown@nashville.gov, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Okay, I got that, Brandon. So I'll just repeat that for everybody. Eric Brown and John Bunton are closely knitted together in this process. So if anybody has any questions that you didn't want to put this exceptionally efficient WebEx platform that we've got going on to use, and you'd rather email them, just eric.brown@nashville.gov, and you'll be happy to entertain any and all questions that are forwarded regarding either one of these two issues. So I don't see anybody else with their hands up. I'll give the floor one opportunity to correct me if I'm wrong. So I don't see any other hands up. So that's going to bring to a conclusion the special call public safety meeting today. And I very much appreciate you all taking time out of your Friday afternoon to be a part of this very, very important discussion. And again, by way of reminder, we've got another meeting next Wednesday, and we will keep everybody informed of this process along the way. The mayor's office has committed to do that to the council. So I'll ensure that that's done. So thank you all for your attendance, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov. Network.